And then, because I gotta be honest with you, on game day, like, I'm nervous. Like, I don't wanna bring it, I'm nervous. Like, I wanna do well too, and I don't wanna bring any undue stress to the situation. I'm nervous. So I'm thinking, have I prepared enough? Have we done enough? So. Any other thoughts? Doug was trying to convince me to come in. I mean, if I can come in, you guys are all Sunday?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'll tell you, if you think it would be well received, but like just sit down with all the parents and like and just tell them what I think, like where baseball's going and what message needs to be heard now and in 2 years.
Well, I think when we were talking before the meeting, I think the big piece is more than just. We've had 3 sessions now, and there's some follow up to it, and a lot of things that Kyle has taught over the years for Go Wags. Like we put together that website, and we're trying to like use those as resources. Like it's really now about the follow up. It's about like making it part of what we do and being consistent. So I mean that's something that we have to talk about as coaches. Is like if we're making this and we believe this to be true, then our actions have to support some of those things. You know what I mean? And so that's the big piece for me where. I value Kyle being able to come and, if it's out of practice or whatever it is, like just getting us to be authentic in this and say, yeah, we not only will say this or put this on paper, but our actions would support those pieces, so.
Good.
Well, and I think one of the things you talked about, I don't know if it was the last time or 2 times ago, was your core principles
Yep.
that you always go back to.
Yep.
And the one thing that you said was that, the most accurate throwing team is the best defensive team. That's one of your core principles.
Yep.
You didn't really articulate what maybe your other core principles actually are.
I was asked that, and then I was asked that in, that I took a little segment of that, and then Twitter captured a little bit, and some people liked it. And so someone said to me, can you tell me what your core principles are? And the more I thought about it, I was like, here are my core principles in a nutshell. If you're gonna make mistakes, make them be bold mistakes. That's core principle across the board. If you're gonna make mistakes, make them be bold mistakes. But don't confuse bold with reckless. Like that's it. I mean, so whenever, because look, anyone can appreciate success. I mean, like, come on, it's success. I mean, but mistakes are what separate the good ones and the bad coaches. Because if you become this result-oriented coaches, you're constantly going to be pulling people down with you. Every error gets accentuated, right? But if the error was a bold error, if you got thrown out going to third base, but it was bold because you knew that there was one out and that was worth the risk. I'll applaud you for that. If your error was an error in you were trying to throw a guy out the plate and you overthrew the catcher. You just airmailed the catcher, but man, you turned it loose. That's a bold mistake. Like that stuff just gets, it's not overcoaching the physical component. That's a core principle, not overcoaching the physical component. And I think a lot of throwing errors are just guiding throws instead of turning that thing loose and just hitting the target. That's ultimately what I find happens when guys aren't hitting targets, is they're trying to steer it, they're trying to guide it. And so I find myself correcting that behavior by turn it loose, and then I find myself huddle them up and say, if we're going to make mistakes, they're going to be bold. They're going to be bold. Stop playing scared, make bold mistakes. Play with your hair on fire. Let's go. That's what I tend to say. So
I think to kind of put a little bow on that a little bit, is something that I've heard you say a number of times is don't overcoach, basically, in not so many words, but sometimes we overcoach and we make them think too much. And so instead, let them play, turn them loose.
Let them play. Go ahead and coach them. Right? Go ahead and coach them when they have time to process what you're telling them, right? But when it's game time, if I overcoach them, then I have a chance where they might become too cautious, and now our mistakes aren't bold mistakes anymore, right? So that's in line with my principles, why I believe this, because I don't want to get in their way of their athleticism, their trial and error. Let them learn and grow. But here, this is where I can provide feedback. This is where I can help. Good. Enjoy it. It's fun.
I like that. I like that model. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I think in ways that if we can verbalize that to others. I mean, I think it's.
Yeah, you guys are in the cushy spot right now.
We are. We are in the cushy
It's all
spot.
feel good. It's coming. It's coming. You just know it's coming and try to anticipate it.
So I had another competence question come to mind that I was
Yeah.
dying to ask you. So especially younger kids, when you see a kid that has a lot of moving parts in his swing, so he anchors, but his arms are moving freely. Like he doesn't have this one piece. Yeah, like I'm trying to find ways to not be too verbal with this and create feels, but I'm not being very successful so far. So like how do you, if you have a kid with so many moving parts, where would you start? Like you know what I mean by all those moving pieces. Like,
so he's a mobile kid, like he's hypermobile.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So those you're not gonna change that. You know what I mean? Like that's he's Gumby and he's flexible.
Gumby.
Yeah. So all you can try to do is first of all, as he gets stronger, he'll clean himself up. Right, like all those moving parts are just literally he's probably weak and he doesn't know how to control things. But if you're speaking specifically about hitting, try to take the arms out of the swing. Okay, like grab a bat, split grip that thing, and then just start to feel that idea there, and then slowly work it up to a check swing. But those moving parts is what you see. Is you see these limbs trying to move the barrel before the big muscles have moved the barrel.
Okay.
Right, so try to get the big muscles to move the barrel, and then tie back in the limbs.
Can you take, what was that progression? What did you start with?
Yeah,
I know the split grip. The split grip with
so
what?
what I'll do is I'll take a kid in the bat, and I'll just widen him out, feel athletic, and I'll put a tee right there. And we'll just make that move, where they'll literally just feel their hips just move, unlock the hips a little bit. And then what we'll do is we'll just slide up like this, and then same thing. So now we're gonna make that move together, and we're not going to swing. We're just going to check swing.
Okay.
Right? I'm not going to let him influence the barrel with his arms. Right? So we'll go here, and then we'll go here. Right? And then maybe narrow it down a little bit. Now this is where it gets, because now all of a sudden, when your hands are like this, you don't have this fulcrum. It's pretty big.
Yeah.
So they can still manage it. But the minute you slide it down, now they might not be strong enough, and then that barrel starts to rip them. Right? So same idea, a little bit narrow, and then go into the check swing, and then just try to turn them loose. And what you'll see is as they do those progressions, the movements will get bigger and bigger and bigger. But you're trying to control the barrel with those bigger muscles before the little ones take it over.
And say you have the opposite kid, the kid that's stiff through the hips and stiff through there, and it's not fluid. It's not, what do you do to engage the hips more?
Well, so without seeing him, sometimes well, there's a couple of reasons. Obviously, what you suggested, but one of the things I would want to make sure was that they weren't trying to slow down too soon. Okay, so sometimes kids look stiff because they're trying to decelerate too fast. Right, so the best pitchers that I see they throw and they have this long extended finish. And as a kid gets older and into his 18, 19, 20, whatever, they can accelerate fully through the ball and then decelerate quickly. But young kids that accelerate sometimes can't stop their swing so fast. So sometimes they try to stop their swing, and then in turn they look constricted, they look tight, rigid. So the first thing I would probably do without seeing him is say, hey, move your wall back. And what I mean by move your wall back is whenever there's a race and the finish line is right there, right? I can run a race across the finish line, but if I stick a brick wall 2 feet behind it, I'm going to slow down so I don't hit the brick wall. But if I can take that brick wall and I can back it up 30 yards, I can accelerate through the finish line. So when I say move the wall back, I mean go ahead and accelerate through it. Don't try to stop so quick. Just big old long finish, decelerate over a greater distance. And then as they decelerate over a greater distance, sometimes their hips get a little bit freer and they can start to do some things. I would never tell those kids, keep your eye on the ball, because keep your eye on the ball brings that brick wall closer. I would keep that thing back for the time being. and then just hope that unlocks them a little bit.
Would that be in the same line? I love when you would work with kids and you would take a video from above
Yep.
looking down, and you were looking at shoulder
Shoulders.
rotation. So
Yeah.
that's what you were looking at, was that
Yeah.
if they weren't going all the way through, you were talking about the deceleration.
Well, as kids get freely unlocked, there's this synced up feel of when things release. And when the shoulders stop early, for whatever reason, who knows, the brick wall, they're tight, then this takes over. So if this is happening before this is fully turned, then that barrel's bouncing through the window. All of a sudden, this is happening when it needs to be flat, it's bouncing all over the place, right? So that idea has to happen so the barrel can get out in front without bouncing through the window.
Can the same thing be done as far as the stance, especially like the kid with the moving parts? Because like with my son, he's moving from top of his head to his feet. So should we work on one thing at a time, or will that correct, the split grip?
I'll tell you what, I would do the split grip stuff, and then just get him to feel that idea of that barrel moving through that ball without this component, and then slowly start to add that thing in. Are the boys, yours are 11? No, 12.
10.
10.
Yeah, 12 and 10.
If here's the other thing when you throw a ball to a kid and the bat stops and then it starts again, right? That's a strength issue. Okay, so if they can't move through a ball without that bat getting interrupted at all, that is a strength issue, and a lot of this stuff will change once they get stronger. I tell the story. My nephew Cole was not a good baseball player when he was young. He was not, and the one thing that Cole had was a willingness to learn, and Brett had this grit to teach him. And the entire winter, when Cole was 9 or 10, I forget, the entire winter, I convinced Brett that he needed to hit ATEC baseballs, no baseballs, just the soft ones. And Brett, why? I said, well, because that impact is changing how he moves through the ball. He's not strong enough to get through it yet, and his swing, he's bracing for impact, no different than a football player not moving through a tackle because he knows the collision's coming. So I said, until he understands that resistance isn't coming, he's going to have a hard time really grooving that swing, right? Groove the swing first, and then let impact happen with the swing. So all winter long, all he did was hit ATEC balls, and his swing got grooved. And then the baseballs came, he was a little bit stronger, and whoo! And then it wasn't bracing for impact anymore. So sometimes take that 5-ounce ball, just tuck it away for a little bit, and feel yourself move through, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, like he's free. Like the finish, right? There's that finish too. You can get through it a little bit. It's a little bit easier. And I don't know if there's a stigma attached to it or not. It wasn't for Cole. He was willing to do whatever.
So this past weekend, so some of the things that Kyle was just sharing, I was thinking about our practices. So this past weekend, John's son was sick, and Kirk threw his back out, so I was short some coaches. I had parents coming in and helping. I kind of had an epiphany that was a good one, was that as I was throwing a HitTrax cage, I had kids next to me, and I didn't have enough parents to be at every station. So I was like, I'll manage these T workers while I'm throwing in HitTrax. And I started, like, as these groups were coming through, I would tell them, oh, I want you guys, okay, I want you working on barrel control. Can you hit that 3 at the end of the tunnel? Hit that spot. I want to work on driving off that back leg more, or rotating through. And, like, I was kind of, like, just giving them different things to work on. And it was just because of necessity. Like, in other words, like, as you hear some of these things, you talk about the difference. There are probably kids that came to mind when you talked about the split grip and maybe a lot of moving parts, like, being able to tell whoever's running those stations, like, it's okay to, like, that not every kid does the same thing when they're in that drill, you know what I mean? And kind of having a plan going in to say, based on what I've seen, I got 4 kids I really want to do this when they're with Shane, but these other 4 when they're with Shane, I want them to do this off the tee or whatever it might be. So I think those are good reminders for us when we come up with our practice plans, for sure.
Yeah, hitting a target off a tee is like it's a go-to all the way up until they're done playing baseball. They'll hit targets off a tee. They might not be like literal targets. They might be like a part of an L screen they're trying to hit, but they're trying to hit targets. I want to see if I can send you this.